Yeah, editing run here, I guess, technically. So just a heads up, this is going to be heavy. This is going to be a very heavy episode. For people who are sensitive to conversations about abuse, I'm going to talk about abuse a great deal. Abuse that I went through, that people I care about went through, and that other people have gone through. If you're sensitive to that in any way, if it'll provoke, if you'll get triggered, if it will trigger a reaction in you that's detrimental to you, then by all means skip this. No one is obligated. I am not entitled to your attention, and I am not entitled to your anything, really. I'm just glad that you're here at all. Also, I'm going to be talking about a certain specific person at great length in this video, and I want to make it absolutely clear, absolutely positively crystal fucking clear. I do not want anyone to go over to this person's YouTube channel or Twitter page or any other fucking social media that the cool kids are using and harass this person or belittle this person or yell at this person. That's not good for them, and that's not good for you. It's just, even beyond like whether or not it's good for either of you, though, it's morally unacceptable. It would be morally repugnant, and I would personally become very irate if I found out that it happened. You're just better off leaving this person alone, and I'll explain that in the video. So yeah. Guess I can't put it off any longer. I don't talk about my life very much. Not beyond vague generalities, like, it's raining today and that's going to make things difficult, or I have to go do chores for people. That's a deliberate choice on my part. Part of it, the smaller part of it, is that, honestly, it's not anyone's damn business what my life is. But the bigger part of it is that talking about my life and my experience, my life has been so terrible as to strain the limits of credulity. Which is fancy talk for you literally wouldn't believe me if I told you how bad it was. But the thing that we're going to talk about, this topic of abuse, and how it relates to cancel culture, that's going to take a while to get there, but the thing that we're talking about, in order to contextualize it, in order to contextualize where I'm coming from, I'm going to need to strain your credulity. I'm going to need to talk for a little bit about my past. I hope you can follow along. So I was abused by my grandmother. Mostly my grandmother. She abused me physically. She abused me psychologically. She abused me verbally. She abused me financially when she had the opportunity to do so. There's a specific thing that she did all the time. I distinctly remember it. What she would do is she would have me do a chore. Not just me, but this is something I remember. She would have me go do some minor chore, like sweeping something, or washing dishes, or cleaning something. It was almost always cleaning something. There was a lot of cleaning that needed to be done. Grandma lives in a really big house, a really old Sears house from, like, the turn of the century. And whenever I was done, she would come in and not just tell me what I did wrong, but she would do it in... She would always tell me that I did it wrong, for starters. But more important than that, she would be vicious about it. She was always vicious. Like, it wasn't just, you can do this better. It was, you did a shit job on this and I should have just fucking done it myself. I remember on some occasions she even just made shit up to criticize. Or she would tell me deliberately wrong things. Like, one time I was doing dishes for her and she told me, she yelled at me for putting the silverware in the wrong drawer. And she yelled at me for putting the silverware in the wrong drawer. She said she was going to move her silverware and I should have known that. And then the next week she yelled at me again for not putting away the silverware in the drawer that it was in the whole fucking time. The drawer that I put it in the first place. I guess she changed her mind or something, or that's what she said, but I still feel like she made it up. And I need to specify here that this was between the ages of like 7 and 14. The vitriol she was using was needless. And like to this day I feel like it was deliberate. Like, I remember this one time when I was 11 or 12. Me and my family were outdoorsy people. We used to go camping a lot, maybe twice a year. And I remember one time we were out camping, and my grandmother, she wanted me to go get something out of her van. Her van was on the other side of the entire park. So, probably a flashlight. It was getting dark. And so I go over to this van. I go over to my grandmother's van, and the doors are locked. So I stand there for a while. I felt like I was standing there too long, so maybe 5 minutes. So I stand there, and I'm going over in my head how the conversation about this is going to play out. I'm going to go over there and tell her that the doors are locked and I can't get the thing, and she's going to yell at me, she's going to call me a worthless piece of shit, tell me to go back and just open the fucking doors because she knows they're unlocked. So I'm going to walk over to the van again, and the doors are still going to be locked. I'm going to walk back over and tell her, no, the doors are still locked. And she's going to call me a worthless piece of shit again, tell me that I'm fucking stupid, and that she's going to have to go and do the fucking thing herself, and she's going to walk over there and get it, and she's going to yell at me for making her do that. So I just decide to skip all that. I decide I'm not going to get the thing, and that I'm just going to pretend I didn't hear her tell me to do it. That seems like the easier option to me. A little while later, my grandmother comes and finds me. I think I was fishing. And she asks me what the thing was. And I tell her, I'm not even thinking about it, that I couldn't get her the thing because the doors were locked. And she asks, Ron, why didn't you tell me the doors were locked? And I look at her and I tell her, because you wouldn't have believed me. And she walks over and she smacks me in the eye so hard that I couldn't see out of it for 3 days. I still can't see out of this eye sometimes when I wake up. She tells me I'm an ungrateful brat, which is something I heard a lot growing up, and that when she tells me to do something, it's my job to do it. She tells me I'm never going to get that I'm never going to get a job, that I'm never going to find a wife if I can't learn to fucking do what she fucking tells me to do. Which is something else I heard a lot. That incidentally ended up being right. The lesson that I took away from my grandmother doing all of this to me over an extended period of time was that nothing that I did was ever going to be good enough for her. At least her. And that I shouldn't put any effort into anything because it was always going to be done wrong. And due to other factors, other things that were happening in my life that I don't want to go into right now, I applied that lesson to other things in my life, which ended very poorly. So, to be absolutely, perfectly crystal clear, I'm not bringing all of this up because I want anyone's pity. Some of the worst things that ever happened to me in my life, some of the worst things that were ever done to me were done out of pity. Keep your fucking pity. And to, again, be perfectly, absolutely crystal clear, I'm not saying that my abuse was any worse than anyone else's. Both of my sisters had to go through much worse abuse than I did. I eventually just learned how to blend in, to move into the background and not be noticed. I am bringing all of this up because there is an abusive presence in our community, and we need to talk about that. So there's a person in our community, in the left tube, bread tube community, who goes by the name Social Justice Demon. So there's this woman in our community who goes by the name Social Justice Demon. She makes claims about people in the community, bigger names in the community, doing horrible things, having horrid motivations based on very scant evidence. She has a video talking about how Angie Speaks has it out not just for all survivors of rape, but specifically for all survivors of childhood rape, based on the fact that Angie asked people not to be too salty about her using the word triggered in sort of a glib fashion. She claims that Peter Coffin is racist because he tried to explain how economic factors, how capitalist factors can motivate someone to fake a racist attack, presumably. She has a 20-minute long video where she accuses Jack Saint and Eric Taxon of getting together and planning and executing this scheme to not only get her thrown off of Twitter, but to spread the details of her child sexual abuse without her consent, based on someone else snipping a tweet that Social Justice Demon sent to Eric Taxon, where she tells him to play in traffic, and Taxon sharing that snip. Oh my fucking the shit that she gets into on Twitter. She's yelled at Non-Compete, she's yelled at fucking Vosh, she's yelled at Christiosity, she's yelled at H-Bomber Guy. And actually it's that last one that compelled me to make this. So, this is... I'm hoping that I'm gesturing towards the thing that she shared before deleting it. This message that she sent H-Bomber Guy. This is abuse. This is abuse. Very straightforwardly. In the same way what my grandmother did to me was abuse. It's the same tactic with the same intent. You have some people talking about cancel culture. You have them talking about how some of it is a clout game. You have some people talking about how a lot of it is people who are just misinformed. Good people who are misinformed. I can tell you from experience that there are some people who are on the far right who come into communities and stir the pot. Like, the best example of that I can think of is Edgy Sphinx, if anyone remembers that. I think if he's still around, he was going by Braving Ruin for a while. But then there are people like this. People who claim to be on the left. People who ostensibly are on the left. Who seem to only react to things with hostility. Who seem to only be able to interact with the left in an abusive, harassing manner. People who only seem to have criticisms, very bitter, very disproportionate criticisms for the left, and not even the slightest hint of support. I want to stress that I don't believe that Social Justice Demon or other people like her are being ingenuine when they express the pain that they feel. I believe that they're being as sincere as they can. But that doesn't absolve the abusive behavior that they're perpetuating online. And also, just while we're clarifying things, I want to be absolutely clear. Do not send this person abuse. Do not send Social Justice Demon abuse. Do not go find her videos and fucking spam hate comments on them. Don't even interact with this person. Please do not go out and find Social Justice Demon on Twitter and harass them or belittle them or even, like, criticize them. That's complicated, but I want to be absolutely sure that fucking people understand. This is a person who is not mentally well. This is a person who needs help, who needs sympathy on some level. This is a person whom, by her own account, and an account that I believe, because it's congruent with her behavior, was the victim of abuse over a very long period of time. Don't do more of that. That doesn't absolve her behavior, but it contextualizes it in a very specific way. When I was older, when I was 19 or 20, I learned about my grandmother's past. That she grew up in a horribly, horribly abusive household. My great-grandmother, my grandmother's mother, abused her in much, much worse ways than she abused me or any of her children. My grandmother's first husband, whom she married when she was 14, literally knocked out all of her teeth. My grandmother's had to wear dentures when she was 15. Her next two husbands were also physically and mentally abusive to her. Abuse doesn't come from nowhere. A person does not spontaneously decide to be an abuser. They learn it from people who have abused them. This social justice demon person, and other people like her, they don't do these things because they're cackling demons, funny enough. They do it because that's how they were taught to interact socially. My sister had, my youngest sister she had it worse than any of us, between the three of us. And there were a few years where she couldn't interact with anyone without being abusive about it. And it was horrible. Every time she talks to anyone, whether it was me or her parents or teachers or even her friends, she yelled at them. She just harassed them or belittled them or accused them of trying to hurt her, and she would go on and on and on with it. She would press your buttons harder and harder until you just couldn't help but lash out. And she told me later that she did that on purpose. After she got help, after she worked on improving herself, she told me that she did that on purpose. Because the only way she knew how to interact with people was to hurt them, and to be hurt by them. This social justice demon person, and other people like her, maybe they only know how to do interactions. Maybe they only know how to communicate through abusive behavior. That's not something that's outside of the realm of possibility. And that doesn't excuse what they've done. That doesn't excuse their actions, but it contextualizes it, right? If the only interactions you have with people are people yelling at you or putting you down, then that's just what you do. You copy the behavior of the people around you, right? The people who bring you up. And so I want to make it clear that, when I'm talking about this person and other people like her, I'm not just saying, boilerplate, don't feed the trolls. Although it's functionally not dissimilar from that. What I'm saying is that these people have a specific worldview. That these people have specific behaviors that they've learned because their lives have been just fucking awful. And that they literally might not know how to interact with people in a positive way. This video isn't for social justice demon or any other person like her that's undergone that. I can't talk to those people, because anything I know from experience, that anything I say to them is just going to be viewed as an attack on them. This is for the people who have to deal with her. And what I'm saying is that being hostile towards her, or anyone like her, harassing her, belittling her, even just calling her out, that reinforces this worldview that she has. That reinforces the idea that the world is specifically out to get her. And that she needs to fight everything. And that's not healthy. And I know that that's her worldview, because that was my sister's worldview. That's how she viewed things. My sister fucking woke up every day and wanted to kill herself. And no one knew about it, because all she would do is yell and scream and belittle people and sometimes smack people around. And that's not okay, but like, there's a reason that she did that. People who are mentally ill can't make rational decisions. Not always. People who are severely mentally ill, like my sister was, I know from experience, can't even have normal interactions. But you're not going to help those people by yelling at them and shouting at them. You're not going to help these people by telling them off, by telling them how they're wrong. You help these people by giving them space, giving them time. I'm 30 years old. I've had a lot of time to purge my demons, so to speak. I had it easy because certain specific things having to do with my worldview and, let's say, biological makeup. A person coming to terms with the fact that they're ill, and that illness was brought about by neglect from people who they cared about, that's much more difficult. Healing takes time. Healing takes space. You need to be in the right kind of place to heal. And I feel like this social justice demon person, she constantly provokes people. She constantly provokes responses as almost like a form of self-harm. She wants people to be angry at her. She wants people to yell at her like that. My sister wanted people to be angry at her all the time. They wanted her to scream and shout so she wouldn't have to think about how awful she was. Every response is perpetuating that. Every response, every belittlement, every yelling at this person is reinforcing that worldview. And the best thing you can do for her, the best thing you can do for any of these people, is give them time and give them space. Leave them alone. And I know that's a hard ask. I know that these people make you angry. I know that they do it on purpose. I lived with one of these people for 5 years. I think we should want them to get better. I think we should want to help everyone, including the people that want to hurt us. And I know that that's a radical proposition, and I know that a lot of people get upset when you mention that, but I lost the thread again. I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. I'm just rambling. I think I'm just going to end the video here. No editing, Ron. Editing this is going to be hard enough. So, yeah, I'm sure that I've mentioned this 2 or 3 times. I might go back and mention it again later, but fucking don't, please don't go and find this person and harass her. Just leave her alone. Leave other people who are like her, who only seem to, the tell is that they only interact with people with hostility. Leave these people alone. They need time and they need space to heal. Yeah. Take care of yourselves, alright?